Oh, we are at Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau, so if you have not made plans for lunch, we invite you to stop by. We got a pretty good crowd, and we've got room for you. And, of course, the award-winning jumbo wings, always a favorite here at Wings Etc., but they have revamped their menu, including their terrific burger menu. And in addition to the award-winning jumbo wings, the freshly made burger menu, they also have wraps at Wings Etc., subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs. Their appetizer lineup includes their massive ultimate nachos, their deep-fried pickle chips, and if you're coming for lunch, their daily lunch specials start at just $9.49. And you can also get Wings Etc. delivered through the DoorDash app. All you do is download the free DoorDash app, take you a couple of minutes, set up your account, and you can have it delivered to wherever you are. It is Wings Etc., home of the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Good food and great times. We're going to be talking it over with Red Hawks head coach Brad Korn. Josh Early is going to join us a little bit later on in the show. Coach Korn, how are things?
Things are good. Things are always much, much better. As you say, food tastes better. Water tastes a little bit better after a win. So it's good to get that Thursday night game out of our head, and played a tough game on Saturday. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect. But at the end of the day, we won, and that's the most important thing. And looking forward to this week.
You built a 22-point lead in the first half. You win it in double overtime, 84-77. You build a 22-point lead in the first half. Is that as good as you played offensively this year to build that lead against Tennessee Tech, or at least close to as good as you played?
I think probably as close as we played it. Just really that first 18 minutes, that's probably as good as we've played all season, both sides of the ball. I thought our defense was phenomenal the first 10, 15 minutes of that game, and then obviously we hit that little lull when they went on their 10-0 run to cut it to 12 before the half. So the way that they play, they space you out, they make threes. Their guards are very, very good. They went small ball on us there, and then essentially they're playing without a post player for a big majority of that game. And then for us with Nate Johnson and Josh Early, you're in that kind of that gray area. It's like, are we going to stay big and try to take advantage on our end? Are we good enough defensively to be able to guard the perimeter with those guys? And so kind of caught us in a little bit of a pickle there with some of those lineups. But again, Nate Johnson, unbelievable defense down the stretch there. And it's never going to go perfect, but we were playing at such a high level. You knew there was going to be a little bit of a drop, but we've got to find a way to control the drops that we've had in some of these games. You go back to SIU, you go back to Little Rock, you go back to some of these other games where we've had some pretty good big leads, even at Evansville, if you want to go all the way back to the beginning of the season. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of drop. Every team makes a little bit of a run. You're never just going to come out and win by 20 and go win by 40 and then win by 60 just because that's not how the game goes, especially a first-place team like Tech at the time. But we've got to find a way to not have these big drop-offs. We can't be playing at a 10 level and then just drop to a 2 within a 2-minute segment. We've got to find a way to be able to sustain and keep a certain level so we can, control the game and sustain those leads that we have, because to have a 22-point lead, we need to be able to be up by more than 12 going into half.
I thought it was interesting. You did go with 5 guards at times, especially late in the game, overtime. But what I thought was interesting was each of the overtimes, they sent out 5 guards. You did not. You wanted to win the opening tip and get that first possession of overtime and double overtime. Mission accomplished because you did. I know before Dylan Branson fouled out, you sent him immediately to the scorer's table after the tip. Yep. You wanted to get him in there for Nate Johnson and match them with 5 guards. But it was clear you wanted the opening possession, and that's why Nate Johnson was out there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'll give a lot of credit to Coach Reynolds and the rest of the staff. They're like, hey, this is very important that we win this tip. We can't match them 5 guards. They win the tip and come down and control momentum and tempo with the first possession in overtime. And so that's exactly what the thought process was, get Nate in there, win the tip. Now we at least can run offense. And so Tech, they play that way, even when they have their big guys in. So they're used to that. For us, we have a small package when we're all guards or Adam Larson's at the 5. But we don't have a ton of – that's not a lot of what we do. And so our playbook is much bigger, obviously, when Nate or Josh Early is in there. And so we were still able to run some offense, control the clock a little bit more. Once we got the possession, we got both. So again, and Nate did a great job defensively, so we weren't hurt really that much on either side. Typically, you wouldn't want Nate Johnson out there guarding guards, but again, every game is a little bit different. Each, especially overtime or regulation, overtime, and overtime, each guy had a chance. We went to Israel Barnes, we went to Chris, we went to Phil offensively, and then defensively, Nate was able to do it. So we left him in there for probably longer than we normally would have in a regular game. But again, that game called for him being ready to go, and he was. And his defensive stand, I believe, I can't remember if it was regulation or the first overtime, but he was out there on an island and did as good a job guarding as anybody had at that point.
I thought it was interesting because John Pelfrey saw that you were going to go with Nate Johnson, and he could have put Nolan Coswell in 6'10", long arms. He won the opening tip over Nate, and especially in double overtime when you send Nate out there for the tip again, and he did not bring Coswell in, almost conceding, okay, they're going to get the opening tip.
Yeah, and they actually did put him in. They put Coswell in after a couple minutes went by to match back up. And so now we were, because of Nate and being able to do what he's able to do defensively, they had to adjust to us, and they had to adjust to Nate, and they put Coswell back in. So I give a lot of credit to Nate to be able to do that on the defensive end at his size. Very, very impressive. So Coach Pelfrey's been around a long time. He's seen a lot of basketball. He knows exactly what he's doing. They're a very, very, very tough team to cover just with the way that they play, and their guards are so good and dynamic with minimal dribbles. They don't really get themselves in too much trouble. And just going back and watching Eric, they hit some tough shots. We did a lot of good, right things, and they still made some tough baskets. So we hung with it. It was not pretty. There were some plays in there that I haven't seen in a long time. Israel Barnes getting a rebound and jumping up and trying to dribble. So just to be in those environments and great crowd, great college basketball game. I'm glad we came away with the victory, obviously. But again, I think this can obviously gets a taste out of our mouth from Thursday, but hopefully this can build some momentum and we can continue on to play the way that we can play.
And I thought Nate did a good job. Now, Coswell only played 13 minutes, but 2 points, 1 rebound for an athletic 6'10" big guy. So he was neutralized in that game.
Yeah, and actually in the overtime, I think it was an offensive rebounder that we broke down defensively. They dropped it down to him, and he had a shot at the rim, and Aquan fouled him. And I thought it was a great foul because going into the game, you shoot 50%.
We said at the time that's a good foul.
And then he makes them both. So
he's not a good free throw shooter.
No, I think he's 43 or 53, something like that. So at the time, it was like, okay, we're all right because it's better than a 3 or a dead 2-point layup. You're thinking you can get him to miss at least one of those free throws. So, but yeah, Nate's done a really, really nice job. He's been very consistent and playing at a very, very high. I think probably the thing that people don't see necessarily from him is the defensive assignments that he's able to carry out that don't show up in the stat sheet. He's in the right places. He's communicating. He's being big. He's blocking shots at the rim, which is good, especially with Kobe had been out. Him and Kobe, I think we're somewhere in the top 3 or 4 in the league and block shots. So to be able to have a guy that can play post defense, ball screen defense, and protect the rim is very, very important from that position on the defensive side.
So you bring up Kobe Clark. We saw him in a very restrictive knee brace on the sideline. What do we know about Kobe Clark?
He'll get seen by the doctors today, later this afternoon, and we'll probably know the more concrete of what the injury is all about, how, time frame, actual injury. It's a knee, obviously, with that brace and crutches. That's never a good sign. Also a little bit precautionary, just to make sure until he can be seen with the true tests and the doctors and everything. So once we get that information later this afternoon, we'll be able to formulate a game plan with the training staff and go from there. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. But again, for a player like Kobe to miss games and be on crutches, it's not the best of a situation, but again, we'll hope and pray for the best, and we'll see where we're at here after the appointment.
What was impressive is, first of all, he's your best defender, he's your best rebounder, and one of the elite rebounders in the league. He's an elite shot blocker in the conference, obviously your best shot blocker. So that is a big miss in terms of what you have on the floor. You're unable to go with Kobe Clark, so you knew other guys are going to have to step up in the rebounding department. And I'll be darned if you don't have 2 guys that have double-digit rebounds. 12 rebounds in the game for Chris Harris, a career high, and 11 for Dylan Branson. He was a rebounding machine, especially in the first half.
Yeah, he did a great job on the offensive rebounds. And that's something we talked about before the game. Everybody's going to – so now leading rebounder goes down. He obviously isn't playing in that game on Saturday. So, and I think that's just what kind of got us in trouble on Thursday night. It's okay, Phil doesn't play. And Phil's one of our guys. Like, he's obviously, we know what Phil is. We know what Phil is to our team. But that doesn't mean we can't play and we can't still go in and compete as long as we continue to play the right way. And each guy does a little bit more. And I thought in that Thursday game, everybody tried to do it themselves, and not necessarily in a selfish way, but just put too much pressure on themselves. So for Chris Harris, for example, I think on the Thursday game was like, well, because Phil's out, I'll take over a lot of the scoring and playmaking and dribbling parts of our system instead of just staying within the system. And so I don't think it was anything that was a selfish thing on Chris Harris's part. It was more so of a mindset that didn't allow us to play freely and openly on offense. And then when shots don't fall, then the stress adds, and we just had a flat game. So I think the same thing to getting back to what you're saying with the rebound. He's like, okay, well, Kobe's out. Well, now Nate Johnson and Josh Early don't have to just go get every single rebound because they're the big guys. And each guy just has to get one more rebound than they normally would have got. And so Adam Larson's got to go get 2 rebounds. Chris Harris go get a couple more rebounds, Dylan Branson, and so you're able to make up that gap that way. And so it's not just one guy that has to do it. We can do it collectively, and that was the point Thursday that I was trying to make with our guys, offensively and defensively. We have to continue to still do what we do and play the right way, and we can still have success until we get everybody back. And so that was good to see us be able to do that. I think Phil even had 6 rebounds, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
And I think we ended up with 50 for the game. So that's the kind of the mindset that you need when you have a guy go down.
Will you run anything differently in practice drills, have more guys crash now knowing that you're not going to have Kobe Clark? Do you adjust some things in practice now to make up for the fact that you don't have a guy who's getting 9 rebounds a game by himself?
You know what? We just have to be a little bit sharper, a little bit more technical on everything. I think sometimes when you know you're playing with a guy like Kobe, it's like, well, as long as I just go near my guy, Kobe will go get it, so I'm good. And so now it's more so you're still doing the right thing, but now that's not – we got to get out of that mindset that someone else will go get it, that I have to go get it. So I don't know that we'll necessarily change anything in practice. The only thing that I'll probably change in practice in the next week or two is more special situations, because I think we're going to be in a lot more of those like we were the other night, and just really drilling home and harping on the things that we need to do in order to execute. Just special situations, because a lot of these games now, you see it all over in all games and all conferences. As you get into conference play, you get into league play, there's illness, there's injury. It's college basketball. You've got tests, you've got grades, you've got all these other factors that go into it. And you see teams being close games that maybe on paper you don't think that they should be. So I think with our conference, you look at it, it's a 6-way tie for first. We're obviously right about halfway. A long way to go, but I think we're going to continue to see some of these close games, and special situations are going to continue to be an important part. And I think you can, as long as everybody is on the same page, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to win the game, but as long as everybody knows what you're trying to accomplish, I think it can eliminate a lot of error.
Boy, that is such an odd situation. 6 teams are at 5-3, and you've got some wins over these 6-win teams. You've got a win over Tennessee Tech, SIUE, and Morehead State. So, there are 6 teams. 5 of them are not SEMO, and you've got wins over 3 of the other 5.
Yeah, it's. We talked about it at length at the beginning of the year to be 4 of 6 on the road to start with, and the second game of the year was Edwardsville, so who the team was the hottest at the time. You got them at home and took care of business. You won a huge game at Morehead. We opened obviously at Southern Indiana, and they played very, very well at home. So I don't want to say get those out of the way. But UT Martin, for instance, they got to see only 20 minutes of Kobe Clark in 2 games. So again, not to make excuses or light of other injuries, because Martin has lost some games where a couple of their guys didn't play. So again, we've put ourselves in a nice position halfway through, and this weekend is another huge weekend. It's just obviously it's been this way, Eric, in league play, the Thursday, Saturday, but for some reason this year seems a little bit more. Just seems, maybe because it is of the log jam, but it just seems a little bit more interesting this year, just because every game now kind of seems like it's like that big final weekend almost, just every weekend series that you go into because you've put yourself in that position. So Thursday's obviously a huge game for us. One, we need to take care of home, but we haven't faced State yet this season, so it's going to be they're always interesting games against them, and then obviously going on the road, you never know what can happen in Eastern's. They went in and played Iowa beat Iowa right after we got beat by them pretty bad. So it's an interesting weekend for us, and but a good positive weekend after the Saturday performance.
What changed in overtime from the second half? Because Tennessee Tech shot 56% from the field in the second half. They went 7 of 12 from three-point range in the second half. At one point, they were 6 of 9.
Yeah.
And then in overtime, you hold them to 20% from three. They end up shooting 20% from the floor, 3 of 15 in the 2 overtimes. What changed defensively because you totally locked them down?
You know, I don't know if anything necessarily changed. We were still doing pretty much the same philosophies that we had the whole game. But it kind of like us when we went up 22 in the first half. It's like, well, why didn't you just keep on winning by more than 20 points? It's like, well, there's ebbs and flows to it. You don't think that a team is going to continue to be 6 of 7, 6 of 8, 6 of 9 from 3, and obviously they miss those in the overtimes. A lot of that has to do with challenge shots. Nate doing a great job. We talked about that. So I think it just was a little bit of a balancing, the way they had just been shooting the ball. Like I said earlier, they had 2 or 3 that there wasn't anything more we could have done other than foul them, and they just made some tough shots. And, well, of course, early in the second half we had breakdowns, and I thought we got a little bit playing the score a little bit too much, or just thinking because it was going so well for us early that we went back into kind of the third gear and we needed to stay in fifth. But I think it just was more so just kind of the laws of averages playing out. Maybe later in the game they got a little bit tired legs, and so now those looks weren't as clean and get a little bit tired. But we didn't do anything schematically or systematically that was any different than what we had been doing.
Is Javis Harvey a tough matchup? I mean, he finished with 22 points, and I mean, he took over the game in certain stretches where you guys just couldn't guard him.
Yeah, we had a couple different guys on him matchup-wise. And, again, they were playing that small ball. So now he's out there, and they play with space, and they do such a good job of not over-dribbling. And so as a defense, if a guy is only taking 1 or 2 dribbles and getting out of his hands, you now have to account for that on the other side. So they were doing a great job of keeping us spaced, and he had a lot of room to work. And now he's got a lot of room to work with. Even though Nate did a good job, Josh, other guys, Adam Larson, there's still a bunch of space to guard a guy like that he can shoot it. He knows how to use his body and get angles and drive and drop his head. So now if you're bringing in help from other places, getting it to the other side of the floor. So they just did a really nice job of spacing us out, and he's they have a very clear mission about what they're trying to do offensively, and it puts a lot of stress on your defense.
It was good to see Adam Larson come out and hit a shot because he had gone scoreless 4 of his previous 5 games, and he's getting the same looks that he had, but he had a big obviously a big three-pointer in the game. He had 2 rebounds, and then he had basically the game-sealing dunk at the end of the game. And you kind of said, hey, I kind of wanted us to pull the ball back out, but we went ahead and got aggressive as Phil found Adam Larson, and he got the dunk, and then that was the ball game.
Yeah, it was at the time you're thinking just because there was so much time on the clock. You know, now if there's 15, 17 seconds, okay, go ahead and take the 2 because now the game it's so much shorter of a game, and now it's a 2-possession game. But with 30 seconds left, I was a little bit worried, again, because they came down, they just missed a shot at the front of the rim. If that goes in, you're right back where you started. So for all that, and when we could have took 10 more seconds off the clock, I would think. And again, Phil had the ball in his hands. We want Phil with the ball in his hands, even though he didn't shoot it well from the foul line that night. In that situation, you'd love for him to continue to dribble and just play keep away and just let that clock bleed down as much as possible. So you get that thing under 20 seconds, you feel really, really good because it's going to take them at least 10 seconds coming back at you, regardless of what happens at that foul line. So, and with the free throws, if we keep the ball, Eric, and we get fouled, obviously the clock stops, and it was going to at some point. But now we make the first one, we go up 4. We can then sub, we can press to slow them down. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And then I told you after the game, I should have called timeout after that. 1, so we can set our defense, because you don't want to give – they missed a 2, but if they come down and it's transition, we had just put Adam in, so matchups may be crossed. He just dunked it. And so it's kind of chaotic at that point, and you can see where guys get lost in transition defense. You see it all the time.
Yep.
Villanova won a national championship game on a little pitch back. So I should have called timeout just to get our defense set. But, again, I love the aggressiveness by Adam. Even that play by Quan, he's the one that threw it in to Phil long. So even at that time, you're up 3 with 30 seconds left. It's like, is that the best pass? Because if that thing goes out of bounds and no one touches it, Tech gets the ball all the way back under their baseline now, and you're only up 3.
Those 30, 40-foot passes make me nervous.
Yeah, especially when you're up 3 in a double overtime game. It's like, wait a second, let's just get this thing in. Let's make some free throws and go home. But again, you never want to take away the aggressiveness of your guys. You want them to continue to play aggressive and give them credit. Give them the credit for having the awareness to be able to do that. And again, Adam, to have that in his mind, I think that's probably the most encouraging thing. One, Phil making that pass when he didn't have to. He could have kept it and dribbled out, and you see a lot of guys do that. But he made the pass, and then for Adam to have the mentality of, I'm going to the rim. That's encouraging.
He doesn't go to the rim a lot.
Yeah, and just as a freshman, I think we forget sometimes, too, that Adam's a freshman. And I think he maybe hit a little bit of the freshman wall. Even though he was here a year ago, you're not counted on every single game when you're redshirting. And so now it's about that time. January, February, it's just you start hitting that wall, whether that's physically, mentally, whatever the case may be. And but Adam's he's a great kid. He keeps a great attitude. And I've taken him out a couple times this year when he hasn't shot the ball. He has to shoot the basketball for us.
Have you noticed he's a fan favorite? The fans love Adam Larson.
Yeah, I think so. I think he understands that. He plays with a good joy and a good spirit about him. When he makes shots or he gets a dunk, again, he's a kid that small town, high school. Obviously, his senior year was during the height of COVID, and so fans couldn't come. He had to wear a mask when he was playing and all that type of stuff. So he didn't get to have kind of that true senior year experience. They were good. His high school team was good. So it's a little bit deflating from that regard. So for him to come and have success at the collegiate level the way that he's having, he always, there's that joy inside of him that you need to have on your team. He's a great teammate, great kid, great parents, all those things. And I think he has such a high ceiling. I think all the fans can see what he can do. And when you can shoot the ball the way that he can, the length that he has, he's got a chance to be a very, very special player in this league.
So Philip Russell comes out, and the adrenaline is flowing. He just missed a game, and all of a sudden he hits 3 shots, and you're like, okay, man, Phil Russell looks like he may take this game over. He made his last shot in the first half 5 minutes into the first half, 15-minute mark. He did not score again in the first half. He didn't score in the second half, and he scored in double overtime. That was his next basket. How was his ankle? And, obviously early in the game he was feeling great with the adrenaline going at one stretch. I know that he went down on the floor, got up, and was reaching down for the ankle. How was Phil physically in that game?
Sore, and he'll probably continue to be sore. But I don't see it becoming a lingering issue or a problem. So Phil's a gamer. He's going to be I've said it at length at these shows and every time I talk to you, Eric, if there's a game, Phil's going to be there and playing, no matter what. So I don't worry about him being ready to go, ready to compete. Came out, just like you said, just everything was going for him early. Our defense was really, really good, though. And Phil can do both sides of the ball for us. And we've got to do a better job. He's got to do a better job. I have to do a better job of when the outside shot isn't falling and finding other ways to get him going and get him involved. And he didn't shoot the ball well from the foul line, which obviously he's an 83% guy before Saturday's game. So if outside shots not falling or people are bottling him up on ball screens now, we've got to do as coaches find a little bit better of a way to maybe get him fouled. Get him to the foul line. He can see one going from the foul line, and that can get him going too. So obviously Phil's a huge part of what we do. And I think it speaks to the level of his talent. It's like he had an off game, and it still would have been some guy's career night. He still had whatever points, but 8 assists, 6 rebounds. So he's flirting with a triple-double, and we're talking about he had a somewhat of a bad game to his standards because he is that level of a player.
I think the biggest upset in the entire game was that he missed 4 free throws. I don't think he's ever missed 4 free throws in a game.
Yeah, and he actually was here last week, if I'm not mistaken, on the show, and his mom was going to give him a hard time. He actually talked about free throws, and so it's kind of ironic, but he went out there after the game and shot free throws, and I guarantee you he was in there yesterday, and he'll be in there today, and he'll be in there tomorrow, and Phil stays in the gym, so that just was the outlier.
Yeah, you and I are doing a post-game interview, and there's Phil shooting free throws after the ball game. And the little kids were out there shooting. He had to run the little kids.
He had a lot of rebounders, so he was good.
He had to run the little kids off a little bit to get the free throws going. So you've got Chris Harris. He ties his career high with 23 points. Obviously, the 12 rebounds or he finished with 11 rebounds. That's a career high. Branson had the 12 rebounds. And once again, he hits a three and ends up on his back. He had done that 5 times in 2 games where he went to shoot the three and got fouled 5 different times shooting a three. One of the 5 went in, and he got a 4-point play at Morehead State. And he hit a three in the game, ended up on his backside. The 3 went in. There was no foul call, and there was no flop call on the play. He's got a knack for doing that. What does he do where he is able to draw fouls when he's shooting 3-point shots?
You know, he does a good job when he gets fouled. He stays in his shot. But one, I think obviously it's a scouting report. Other teams know who he is, and they say don't let him shoot. He's shooting really good percentages in league play. And people know the level and the caliber of player that he is, so they try not to give him any space. I think it's the beauty of our offense. Phil Russell, Quan Smart, Israel, Dillon, being able to have good guard play and guys that can drive the basketball. And so now if your game plan is to help in, or now Phil beats his man or Quan beats his man and Chris's man is that next line of help, well, the second he runs into help, because that's what you've been drilled in practice, but then out on a scouting report you say to stay home on Chris Harris, that guy forgets, and now he's late arriving. Chris does such a nice job of playing with his feet underneath him. You know, we talk about a lot in the shooting in a phone booth or an elevator shaft, since guys don't know what phone booths are anymore. I barely do, but straight up, straight down. You know, you're not leaning one way or the other, you know, so the defense can't avoid him. When his feet are underneath him, he jumps straight up and he goes right back down where he took off from.
Does he have something where he puts out his non-shooting hand to get I mean, he clearly has this down. And it's not the old Reggie Miller kick your leg out, because they don't give you that call anymore at any level.
It's actually an offensive foul now.
Yes. So, but, I mean, he's got a knack for somehow there's contact when he's shooting that shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's amazing. He actually jokes about it a little bit. He's like, I got to lead the country and getting fouled from the three-point line, which he probably does.
Yeah, probably does.
But I don't know what it is, again, other than just teams. You know, you're drilled so much on protecting the paint. The defenses collapse on our drives with a guy like Phil, Quan, et cetera. And now when they kick it out, defenses are late. Now they're in a complete scramble, undisciplined closeout situation. They just run right into him again, because Chris is a strong-bodied kid, obviously, and so he's not worried about the contact, and he stays in his shot. And for whatever reason, people just keep on running into him.
So the 84 points, that keeps your scoring offense. It actually ticked it up a notch. 81 points per game. How concerned are you when you look at the defensive stats, scoring, field goal percent, 3-point field goal percent? Because I know they don't sit where you want them to sit, but you're still winning games. And offense is a big reason why you're winning these games.
Yeah, offense is a big and that's what at the end of the day, you are what you are. As far as what it's something that the offense is something that we've done the last 2 years.
Right.
But at the same time, we've talked at length. If we are serious about trying to contend, you can't be last in any statistical category if you think you're going to contend. And so we've got to do a much better job. The numbers aren't far off as far as first to last. Edwardsville, according to the numbers, is first in defense, and we scored 80-some points against them. So it's just I don't know exactly what – we've had some outlier performances as far as giving up too much. We have to get better on that side of the ball. That's why I was so encouraged on Saturday. I thought that was the best our defense looked in the first half in a long, long time. So I know it's there. To me, it's more so of us and our guys understanding and communicating more than it is what we're trying to do maybe systematically. I think there's the ability to do that. I think it's also just the level of defensive intelligence that our guys need to continue to play with. And what I mean by that is you have to know who you are as a defender and then execute our team defensive system. So a guy like Dylan Branson, who may not be as fast as Phil Russell laterally, has to understand that I may give this guy a step, but now all of a sudden when I hear a call on our defense, now I may have to get up a little closer to the ball, which then helps everybody else on the backside. So I don't want to go into a situation where we're constantly changing defense and just all of a sudden throw a zone up against there. We have to first be much, much better at what we are supposed to do and what we've done over the course of time, which I thought we did that in Tech. And so now what we've done and what we've taught and what we drill in practice is there. We just have to execute it at a higher level if we're serious about trying to contend. You know, if we're going to stay at the top towards the offensive numbers, because, again, that's what our identity is. That's what we're good at that. But if we're going to be serious about contending for a championship, especially with Kobe going down for however long he may be, obviously he's missed a game. He's going to probably miss a few more at a minimum. If we're serious about contending, then those numbers have to go up. And that comes from internally, then collectively, and then we can maybe get to if a systematic thing is broken. But right now I don't feel that it is. We just have to be better in what we're doing to this point. And all that said, we're last in free throw percentage, and we're not high on three-point field goal percentage either on offense. So those numbers are going to continue to increase. I don't see those numbers staying down there. So again, if our defense can catch up a little bit more to our offense, I think we can start having some serious conversations about what our ultimate goals are. Because at the beginning of the year, Eric, our defense was ahead of our offense, and so now we've flipped a little bit. So now we got to get both back on par.
You are 9th in three-point shooting, but you are 4th in made threes. So you're making 8 threes per game. So is Tennessee State. But you're making 8 threes per game. You're not shooting it at a high percentage, but that's still a big part of what you do.
Yeah, and we have guys, you look at Adam Larson, who hasn't shot it particularly well of late. He still has decent percentages. Israel Barnes has not shot a great percentage, and I know he's a much better shooter than what the percentage says.
I think it was 0 for 5 on Saturday, but still had double figures.
Yeah, and again, I know the numbers say that, but every time he shoots, I think it's going in because I know he's a good shooter. Kobe had open looks from 3, but he wasn't shooting a great percentage from 3. So as long as we're taking the right shots, I feel good about those numbers increasing. But again, we have to have performances like we had on Saturday if we're gonna be serious. And I think our guys are serious. I'm not saying we're not. But again, we can't if that's what we say our ultimate goal is, to be having these conversations late into February about being in position the last weekend of the season for a league championship. Well, we can't be last in defense if those two things can't be the same unless we somehow get to 100 points a game and all that. But that's not going to be a reality either. And so our defense has got to catch up if we're serious about doing that.
When you talk about setting a tone, you go into the second overtime. Both teams only scored 4 points in the first overtime. So defense was, reigning in that first OT. And you talk about setting the tone. You keep Nate in to get the opening tip. So you've got the first possession in double overtime. If you start listing your three-point shooters on the team, you go down the list a little bit before you get to Aquan Smart. He has not been a great three-point shooter for it. Doesn't mean he can't make them. Right. But he sticks a 3 in the right corner. You go up by 3. That set the tone in double overtime. That was a huge shot, I thought, for momentum purposes, the shot that Aquan Smart hit.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because he didn't have he played 15 minutes against Martin and fouled out. And so now Phil doesn't play. Aquan's now got to step up all over the board and do a lot of things for us with Phil going down. He fouls out and doesn't have a great game. And so we're looking at him as he can have kind of a bounce-back game. I thought he was great defensively. Everything that he may lack as far as statistical numbers go, I think he can give us what we need defensively. He's long. He's
disruptive on defense.
He's active. He's fast. He's quick. He was huge in that Moorhead game the last 3 minutes. Phenomenal. Israel was as well defensively. So, again, although some of those offensive numbers may not look all pretty, those two guys can give us something on the defensive side. And I thought he did that in the Tech game. I thought that was the best he's played defensively. And going into that last shot, we drew up a play, and Phil's coming down on the right side. I believe it was Phil or Chris. And we said, hey, if they help off the corner, Quan's in the corner. And he said, during the timeout, he said, I promise y'all I'm going to make this if you get it to me. I haven't made any shots yet, or I haven't made the ones that I felt I should have made. He's like, but I promise you guys, if I'm open in this corner and it hits my hands, I'm going to make it. And he did. And so, again, it's just more of that affirmation of what you're telling you got to talk to yourself before you listen to yourself, because there's going to be a lot of self-doubt in there just because it's just fatigue. And the first thing to go when you get tired is your mind. And so for him to be in that second overtime and have that thought process of, you know what, I've put in the work, because he stays after every practice and shoots. I know this ball is going to go in if it hits my hands. And so it was good to see him have, and we did, you're right. That seemed to be the momentum that we needed, that one shot to kind of go in to give us another, because it really was going to come down to the team that got us a shutout, a score, and a shutout. And it felt like that's where the game was at. It just was hanging in that balance. And so we got that shutout, we got that score, and then I think we got another shutout. And so to be able to end up winning by whatever it was, 5 or 6 points, seems like it.
7.
7. It seems like, at that point, 7 points was
massive.
Right, exactly. So that 3 was huge, but it seemed to give us that energy boost to kind of close and to finish the game off.
All right, Josh Early going to join us when we come back from the timeout. What can you tell us about Josh Early? And he's battling back from that shoulder injury. Looked pretty good on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Josh is one of those guys that everyone gets mad at Josh. We get mad at him all the time because you see him do things, and we see him do things in practice. You're like, oh my goodness, this is an all-league guy. And he's battled injury all over his body, all over the place, knock on wood. So he's got a ton of talent, and it's just getting all that talent out of him. He gets, he didn't play a ton at his previous school the last year, and so now coming here and getting those minutes and being able to play, he wants to do well. So he's pretty hard on himself, honestly. He's kind of a quiet kid, really, for the most part. And so just him keeping a positive attitude and keeping his head on straight, because he's got a world of talent, and especially in our league down on the block, he's had some huge games. And again, we talked about rebounding and Kobe going down. Josh is another one of those guys that can give us a bunch of rebounds. And probably the biggest compliment you can have as a player is that the coaches all think you played poorly, and then you grab the stat sheet after the game and he's got almost a double-double. And the other night it's like, man, Josh could have really done this, and then you grab the stat sheet and you had 7 and 5, I think it was. So again, just Josh rolling out of bed, I think, can get us 7 and 5, and so the coaches see that, and so we want Josh to have 14 and 10. So coaches are always going to be a little bit greedy, but it's because we see a lot of potential in him.
All right, we'll talk with Josh Early. He is here. He will join us when we come back. A winner, Josh Early, coach 3 state championships. I know coaches like to recruit winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's actually a kid when it all came about. Obviously, we have his teammate Gavin Elkema, who hasn't played all this year because he got injured, unfortunately, as well. But I remember my time at K-State. He played for Kansas City, run GMC, the Kansas City AAU team. So when I was at Kansas State as assistant, I actually remember seeing him play. So when it came time we knew we needed big guys in the portal. At least he was a familiar face. It wasn't just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard. We knew who Josh was, and I had seen him play before.
We'll talk with Josh Early, and then we'll wrap it up with Coach Korn and give you a little preview of who are the Tennessee State Tigers. They have the top scoring player in the entire league, and he just scored his 2,000th point on Saturday. We'll talk about it, and if it'll be Philip Russell against Junior Clay, that may be the matchup of the year in the OVC. Josh Early joins us when we come back. Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN. in Cape, and I believe we'll be over in the Jackson location next Monday. So as the Red Hawks get set to host Tennessee State on Thursday night, we will talk about that game and much more over in the Jackson Wings Etc. location. And we want to remind you that there is a lot more than just wings. Here at Wings Etc., they have over 70 items on their menu that are not wings, and that includes their brand new revamped burger menu. And if you'd like to get wings delivered, now I don't know why you would want to come here. They've got all the high-def televisions and the best sporting events here at Wings Etc. But if you'd like to get it delivered, that is a new option through DoorDash. Just go to DoorDash, set up your account, and you can have delicious Wings Etc. food delivered to wherever you are. Whenever you want it. Josh Early is joining us now on the Coaches Show. How are things, Josh?
I'm good.
How's that shoulder? Because we saw you go down. It looked like the guy behind you just came across your shoulder. It didn't look like you landed on your shoulder. It looked like he came across your shoulder. Tell us about the shoulder injury.
It's not too bad right now. It's getting a lot stable, a lot stronger every day. Doing a lot of PT for it once a day. So I felt good last game, so it's getting a lot better.
You sure look good. So was it a case that it popped out of socket?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, has that ever happened to you before?
I actually have it in my other shoulder too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you've already been through it before, and I'm sure they probably gave you a lot of shoulder strengthening exercises, right? Isn't that the way that you kind of overcome that, is strengthen things around the shoulder?
Yeah, just make it a little stronger so I'm more comfortable out there on the court, moving around the low block, and yeah.
Well, you've got now. Did you ever seen any old video of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Okay. Well, he's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA, 7'2", and he had what was called a sky hook. Mm-hmm. Well, most people will tell you that is the most unblockable shot in the history of basketball, was Kareem's sky hook at 7'2". You kind of got a little sky hook. It seems like it's more than a baby hook. It's kind of like a sky hook. Tell us about that, because you get so much elevation on that shot. I can't imagine guys have blocked it very much.
No, it is a hard move to block. I don't know. It's just kind of it's kind of the go-to move that I just always went to. So it does. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
What I think is interesting is you've got that shot with both hands. How long did it take to develop going to the left hand as well?
Just as much as the right. I mean, you got to put in work every day to be able to do both. So,
what's it like going up against Nate Johnson in practice every day? Because we're talking 6'9", 250. I mean, that is a big cat that you're battling in practice.
Yeah, he's very big, and he's playing really well too. I know he was a little frustrated in the beginning of the season, but I'm really happy that he's playing a lot better these past few games.
What I think is interesting, early in the season, he got the same shots that he's getting now, but he was getting some bad bounces. Things weren't going in, and now you look up, and the guy's shooting 62% from the field, which would be number 2 in the OVC if he had enough field goal attempts to qualify. So whatever he was not doing early in the season, he's certainly doing it right now.
Yeah, and I'm happy for him. I hope he continues doing what he's doing. He's a big part of the team. We obviously need him. I'm just happy for him.
So you played 3 years at Tulsa for Frank Haith, and obviously we're familiar with Frank Haith here. When he was at the University of Missouri, had a lot of success there. You played 3 years. You got in 41 games in 3 years at Tulsa, but you only averaged in 3 years 5 minutes a game. How frustrating was it that you didn't get much of an opportunity at Tulsa?
Yeah, it was very frustrating, especially maybe a year or two ago. My freshman year, it's kind of like it's the freshman thing.
It's hard to play as a freshman.
Yeah, and then the past 2 years, it was just really frustrating because I knew what I was capable of, but just wasn't getting the minutes that I thought I would be getting. But now I have a great opportunity here. I love the team. I feel like we can do something special here.
Boy, and you've had some big games for the Red Hawks. 15, your career high against Missouri. You had 13 points against Evansville, and Hey, I mean, in limited minutes on Saturday, you had 7 points and 4 rebounds.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for the opportunity I have here. It's complete 180 than what I was 3 years ago. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity I have.
Boy, I look back at your free throw numbers at Tulsa. You didn't get to the free throw line a whole lot, but man, you have increased your free throw totals a lot. How much do you work on free throws?
I mean, quite a bit. I think we shoot free throws. We shoot free throws every practice. So free throws win games. So it's a really important thing to us to make free throws every game. So we have a chance to set us up a win every night.
And I know a lot of coaches want to see the free throws at the end of practice because you are more fatigued at the end of practice. And a lot of times, late in a ball game, you're fatigued at the free throw line, so you are simulating fatigue from the line because that's a factor, isn't it, when you're shooting free throws if you're tired?
Yes. Yeah, especially when you're tired, it's harder to make them, but those are the most important ones because it's, like you said, usually at the end of the game when it matters the most.
All right, so with Kobe Clark now down, how much is everybody thinking about, okay, got to do a little bit more in terms of rebounding, and you're one of SEMO's best rebounders, knowing that your top rebounder is not going to be there at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Kobe going down it's a tough one because he's a very big part of the team, especially with rebounding, and defensively he's a great defender. But that just means everybody else has to take another step, increase their role on the team, and just pick up the slack.
You're from Shawnee Mission, Kansas. What was it like growing up there?
I mean, it's not. It's a little different than here. It's bigger than Cape, but it's not bad. I went to Bishop Miege High School, private high school.
Is that the way you pronounce it, Miege?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've been pronouncing it wrong. Good.
We were pretty good at basketball. We won state my freshman through junior year, so can't really complain.
Tell us about what that's like. I mean, just to make it to a state championship game is incredible, but to win a state championship is hard, and you won 3 state championships. What was that like?
It was fun. I fortunately went to a high school where we were just happened to be really stacked, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
So did you have teammates during that run at Bishop Miege that were Division I players that they went and played D1 basketball?
Oh yeah. I had a couple. Spencer Jones, he's at Stanford. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, he plays for the OKC Thunder. And then I had a chance to play with Bol my freshman and sophomore year.
SIU, right? No, Bol. No,
he's on the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, where did he play college ball?
Oregon.
Oregon. That was it. I saw him play at Oregon. My daughter goes to the University of Oregon, so I should have remembered that. And you talk about a guy who's freakishly long and athletic, Bol, right?
Yeah. Yeah, guarding him in practice every day was a struggle.
And when you think about where you guys are sitting right now, it's so weird to think that we're almost halfway through the season and we got a 6-way tie for first place, but the Redhawks are one of those 6 teams. So you're going into play on Thursday against Tennessee State in first place in the OVC. What's that like, and how much pride is the team taking in that? Because I know that is your guys' goal. See if you can get to the finish line and be atop the standings.
Yeah, it's great. We went on a little losing streak, and we might have lost a little confidence. But I think these few games that we've won, especially this last one, because UT Martin, that kind of put a bad taste in our mouth. But, yeah, I'm just grateful that we could string some wins together and be where we're at.
All right. Who's the best player you ever played against, either in high school or college? Because I'm sure at Tulsa you played against some really good teams who had some really good players.
Probably we played Houston, and they were in our conference, so I'd probably have to say maybe Quentin Grimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really good player. Who's the best player you ever played with?
Probably Bull.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bull.
Yeah.
One of the all-time great names, by the way, in the history of basketball. 22 years old, and you still, I think you've got another year of eligibility,
Yes.
don't you?
Yeah.
How-
Because COVID happened my freshman year.
How
so.
cool is that to know that, hey, if I choose to come back and play another year, I get a chance to do it, kind of like a red shirt.
Yeah, no, it is cool, especially because I'll be able to come back here. I feel like this extra year will help me reach whatever goals I want too. So,
What's it like playing with Philip Russell out there?
it's very different. I've never it's very different, but I love his energy out there. Love the way he can score in bunches. He also passes the ball very well too. He's great to play with.
How many times, or did it happen early when you first got in the program and you guys are in practice, where for 1 second you may take your eye off Russell and here comes the ball?
Oh.
I mean, he's one of those guys you can never take a second off because he may pass you the ball. Tell us about that, and have you ever played with a guy like that?
Oh no, I've never played with a guy like that. So it was very different when I first got here. And some of the passes he would make, it's like, wow, how did he get that there? Like it's crazy.
He's a fun guy to watch play. All right, you got Tennessee State here, and then it's going to be out on the road. What's the thought process here as Tennessee State comes in and they've got the top scorer in the conference, Junior Clay?
Just keep what we've been doing. Like last game, if we can defend, rebound, and run for 40 minutes, I don't think anybody can beat us.
So you play 50 minutes, double overtime. Pretty tired after that game. That was a long, grueling, physical basketball game.
Yeah, very long game, but I'm glad we got out with the win. That's all that really matters. If it doesn't matter if it was pretty or ugly, win is all that matters.
All right, you control your own destiny now. Tied for first place going into the game against the Tigers on Thursday. Josh, thanks so much for the time. Grab some of those delicious wings before you get out of here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, Josh Early. Appreciate his time, the three-time state champion out of Bishop Miege High School in Kansas. One final thought here with Coach Brad Korn. When we come back, tell you a little bit about the Tennessee State Tigers who come to the Show Me Center on Thursday. It's the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, Etc. Here, thanks to Josh Early, who joined us just a few moments ago. And, boy, it's good to have him back and healthy, isn't it, Coach? I mean, man, he can do a lot of things for you down on the post. And good, effective post players don't grow on trees.
No, and he's got, he said that about it, having another year. And, a lot of guys got away from the whole redshirt thing. And as unfortunate as COVID was, the positive is going to be guys like him and others, and Dylan Branson, Phil Russell, Kobe Clark. Those guys, we still have pretty fairly young roster when you look at it. I think it's 9 freshmen and sophomores. And so, again, it's
a lot.
Yeah, and so we're in a good – and those guys, eligibility-wise are listed that, but experience-wise, they're sophomores and juniors.
Because you're playing so many rosters that are so old because of transfer guys. You got a sixth-year senior here for Tennessee State. This is his third Division I school. So there are so many teams that are old, but you're not really old.
No, and you look at a guy like Chris Harris for us, who's a 6-year senior, but he's been at SEMO for 4 years, which is he's kind of an outlier, walking out of here with 2 degrees. So, like Josh and some of the other guys on our team, you being able to build your program, have guys return. I think that's where you see a lot of it. You saw a lot of Edwardsville having a lot of success because they brought back the majority of their team. So again, just the way that college, the landscape of it all, college athletics, it's probably harder now than ever, obviously, to keep your roster intact and together. But I feel that we've done, the staff, and did a great job of assembling the roster that we have. Quan Smart, another one of those guys that's kind of in that sophomore, but really, junior playing wise. So keep it all together, keep getting better, have those guys come back again the following year. Feel really good about where you're at in the future, but obviously it's about right now, and Josh and those other guys can continue to help put us where we ultimately want to go and where we want to be.
I think one of the fun things to watch in this game on Thursday, you've got the top 2 scorers in the conference. Junior Clay, who's a fifth-year guy, played 4 years at Tennessee Tech, just scored his 2,000 point at Little Rock on Saturday, had 33 points in a loss at Little Rock. But it's Junior Clay and Philip Russell, the top 2 scorers in the league, and they're 1-2 in assists. Russell 1, Clay 2. Will we see them matched up against each other? Because I know if we do, Phil is he's going to be ultra hyper.
Yeah. Of course, they're going to get cross-matched. They'll be matched in transition. We always say, just like any coach, you don't have a man in transition. So there'll be many a times.
But Clay won't be Russell's guy.
Not necessarily to start with. Again, we'll see. It's a little bit early in the week. We obviously know who he is. Phil knows who he is, being at Tech from the years past and all that. So, but again, I think when you start worrying about one other guy too much, then those, whoever their third, fourth, second leading scorer, those guys pop up, and now you can't beat them because you've let too many guys get going. So we have to know, and our guys will know that we it's no secrets when you get into late January, February basketball, and so everyone's going to know. We have to be completely locked in as a team to take him away, because obviously he is a very good player, but they also have other good players. And so we can't just be caught up in one guy in particular, and we just have to be very, very cognizant of where he is at all times. That's why we try to harp on the little things as much as possible, transition defense, knowing exactly what we're doing in our ball screen defense, and then knowing what the scouting report is, so we don't allow a guy to have a career night, and you don't allow other guys to have. Good players are going to find a way to have a good game. Like we talked about our good player in Philip Russell. And by his standards and what we may see from him, was an off night the other night, and he still had 16, 8, and 6. And so good players are still going to find a way to be good. But now for Junior Clay, for example, if he's averaging 20 points a game, can we make it a game where he's got to take 20 shots to get 20 points and still keep everybody else in check? If we can follow that recipe, we'll have success.
And he gets to the line. He's an excellent free throw shooter.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that is identifying him early in transition. And again, too, will Phil Russell be on him? Absolutely. Quan Smart will get some. Israel Barnes will get some. So it's going to be our whole team and not just one guy having to guard him. And I think if you just have one guy guard one guy, you're not going to have. That's not a good formula. It's not a good recipe for success. So it's going to be a combined effort. I think one of the games I go back in my mind, Boston. I can't remember his name, but number 5 for them was really, really good. And he saw 4 different SEMO defenders that night, and he could never get going. It was probably his worst offensive game all season. So we got to kind of have that same mentality and that same approach.
Kind of like Seabree the other night. He's their leading scorer. You held him to 4 points, I believe. That other guy for them is a guy that has given you fits, and that's Marcus Fitzgerald. He had 2 games against you last year and scored 23 points in each game. He's the 9th leading scorer in the OVC, and he's a guy that is handing out assist to turnover ratio. He's been a tough matchup for you.
Yeah, he's a very good guard. Another one of those guys that Phil knows through the AAU and growing up in basketball, in the AAU basketball world. So there's not going to be any surprises. Again, it's just going to come down to who's the most consistent, who can dominate the simple parts of the game the best. And when we do that as a group, as a team, we have a lot of success. And so, again, you can't just key in on one guy. Everybody has good players. There's a leading scorer on every team. There's a second leading scorer on every team. And so we've got to be hooked up and ready to go. State has always been a scary team, just from the standpoint is they always have talent. They always have guys that might be averaging 11, but if you go back and look at their game logs, they've popped in for a 30-point game here, a 25-point game here, but their average says 11. So we've got to be on point with everybody, not just those two, but really their whole roster and for 40 minutes and not just in segments.
And down on the post, you've got two finishers because Nate Johnson, 62% from the field, and the guy that leads the OVC in field goal percentage is Adong McCoy, who is a native of Canada, 62%, 3 double-doubles, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 6'9", 220. He's played a lot of basketball. He's a grad student. That should be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, and he's actually a kid that I knew about when I was at K-State as well. Again, another one of those guys with the COVID and the +1 year. He's a physical guy.
Transferred from Northern Illinois.
Yeah. And so it's just they always have talent, and they've always had a deep roster. And it kind of seems when you watch them early in the year, they're always a little bit different than they are about this time of year as far as this guy was playing well, this guy came out of nowhere. But they've always been guard heavy. They've always been guard strong with the way that they play and push tempo. They're leading the league in offense or points a game or whatever it is, correct or no?
In terms of points per game, they're 4th at 73. You're number 1.
Okay, and they're, but I know they've pushed in the past, or last year when we played at their place, they were leading the league in scoring. So they've always kind of pushed the tempo and have guys that can go and get their own shot and score a bunch of points. So I think that's what, when they're playing their best, is everyone's focused in so much on those two guys, and a guy like Adong can get going and get off because now everyone is paying so much attention out front, or they commit too many people to the ball, and now he's exposed at the rim. So, again, it's more of our team, SEMO versus Tennessee State, than it necessarily is against any one individual matchup.
Boy, and when you talk about shooting the 3, Dedrick Boyd, he's the 6-year guy talking about. 5 years ago, played at Eastern Kentucky. Transferred, played 2 years at Illinois State, and now he's at Tennessee State. 6th year, he scored over 1,100 points and comes into play closing in on 200 made career threes. That's their guy from behind the arc.
Yeah, and he doesn't need much time to get his shot off. They are still running a particular play that they've ran for him in the past, and we scout it and you take it away and he still finds a way. Similar to our guy, Chris Harris, still finding a way to get fouled from the three-point line. He still finds a way to get his shot off when everybody knows exactly what he's out there able to do. But he's one of those guys that if he hits one, he's going to come back down the very next possession. It's probably going up. So, again, have to be very, very aware of where he's at all times because he's had some huge games in his career over the years.
All right, chance to stay in first place, and there are going to be teams that lose on Thursday, so your chance to solidify your hold on first place Thursday.
Yeah, would you rather not be talking about it? And so it's exciting from that standpoint, but at the same time, understanding it's a long way to go. But again,
it's the halfway point Thursday.
Yeah, and so you got to – that's what you want to keep working for. That's what we've talked about. That's what we've been trying to do. So we've got a long way to go, but it's understanding how we can play and what we can be. And I think this just reaffirms it the way we've been playing. Obviously, Saturday was a huge win just because, again, your gut check type of game and to continue to put yourself in that conversation. So I think our guys understand that. Every game is different. You can't just show up because you were supposedly in first place at one point. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Everybody's jumbled right now and all across college basketball. And so now as you start to get into the latter half of the conference season, that's when the separation will start. And so we've got to continue to do what we do and know what makes ourselves successful as we head into the backside of league play.
It will not be a 6-way tie for first after the games on Thursday night. It'll be about a 7:20 tip-off. The women go at 5 o'clock, big doubleheader with the Tigers. Coach, thanks so much for the time, and we'll see you Thursday.
All right, Eric, sounds good. Thank you.
That is the Red Hawks head coach, Brad Korn. That's going to do it here from Wings, etc. in Cape. We'll be in Jackson next week, and don't forget 5 and 7:20 for the doubleheader Thursday night at the Show Me Center. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. So long from the Coaches Show at Wings, etc.